California, a land of sunshine and dreams shrouded in darkness. Known for its golden beaches, sprawling cities, and the promise of a better life, it was hard to imagine that such a place could harbor such malevolence. Yet beneath the surface of this idyllic paradise, a sinister force lurked, waiting to strike. For over a decade, a predator stalked the night. He moved silently through the shadows, his presence felt but rarely seen. The darkness became his ally, the night his domain. Residents locked their doors and windows, but it was never enough to keep him out. He became a phantom, a nightmare whispered from neighbor to neighbor. Stories of his deeds spread like wildfire, each tale more terrifying than the last. He was the embodiment of fear, a ghostly figure that haunted the collective consciousness of entire communities. The Golden State Killer, they called him. His name was splashed across headlines, his crimes detailed in every newspaper. Yet despite the media frenzy, he remained elusive, always one step ahead of the authorities. He was a boogeyman come to life, leaving a trail of terror in his wake. His presence was felt in every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the leaves. The fear he instilled was palpable, a constant reminder of the danger that lurked in the night. Fear was his weapon, and California was his hunting ground. He thrived on the panic and dread he caused, feeding off the terror of his victims. The once peaceful neighborhoods were now filled with anxiety and suspicion, as everyone wondered who would be next. From the quiet suburbs of Sacramento to the sun-drenched streets of Southern California, no one was safe. His reach was vast, his methods unpredictable. He struck without warning, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. He broke into homes, his victims unaware of the horror that awaited. The sanctity of their personal space was shattered, replaced by a sense of violation and fear. The places they once felt safest became the settings of their worst nightmares. He bound them, tortured them, and stole their peace of mind. His cruelty knew no bounds, his actions leaving deep psychological scars. The physical pain he inflicted was only a part of the torment. The emotional and mental anguish he caused was far more lasting. His crimes, as brutal as they were baffling, left communities reeling. The police were left with more questions than answers, and the public was gripped by a sense of helplessness. The Golden State Killer's reign of terror seemed unstoppable, his identity a mystery that eluded even the most seasoned investigators. The Golden State Killer wasn't just a criminal, he was a specter, haunting the dreams of Californians for years to come. His legacy of fear and violence cast a long shadow, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind even the most beautiful facades. It began in the summer of 1976. The air was thick with the promise of long, lazy days and warm nights. Children played in the streets, and families enjoyed barbecues in their backyards. It was a time of innocence, or so it seemed. The whispers started in Sacramento County. At first they were just rumors, hushed conversations between neighbors. But soon, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Something was amiss in the quiet suburban streets. A prowler, they said, peeking into windows, vanishing into thin air. He was like a ghost, leaving no trace behind. The community was on edge, locking their doors and windows, peering out into the darkness, hoping to catch a glimpse of the elusive figure. Petty thefts escalated to something far more sinister. The prowler's actions became bolder, more brazen. He was no longer content with just watching. He began breaking into homes, stealing personal items, and leaving behind a trail of fear and uncertainty. The whispers grew louder, more urgent. Neighbors gathered in the streets sharing their fears and suspicions. The sense of community was overshadowed by a growing sense of dread. Who was this man, and what did he want? A rapist was among them, they warned. The police increased their patrols, and neighborhood watch groups were formed. But despite their efforts, the prowler remained elusive, always one step ahead. His attacks followed a pattern. He would strike in the dead of night when his victims were most vulnerable. He was methodical, calculating, and terrifyingly efficient. He would stalk his victims, learning their routines. He knew when they would be alone, when they would be asleep. He was always watching, always waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He targeted women home alone or couples in their beds. No one was safe from his predatory gaze. The fear was palpable, spreading like a dark cloud over the community. He would bind and blindfold them, his voice a chilling whisper in the darkness. He took pleasure in their fear, in the power he held over them. His victims were left traumatized, their lives forever changed. He threatened their lives and the lives of their loved ones. His cruelty knew no bounds. He was a master of psychological terror, breaking his victims' spirits as well as their bodies. He was meticulous, controlling, and utterly ruthless. He planned his attacks with precision, leaving nothing to chance. The police were baffled, unable to predict his next move. The East Area Rapist, as he became known, was just beginning his reign of terror. His name would become synonymous with fear, his crimes a dark chapter in the history of Sacramento County. The whispers in the dark were only the beginning. The Golden State Killer didn't just want to violate, he wanted to control. His crimes were meticulously planned. He would often break into his victims' homes beforehand. He would study their routines, their habits, their vulnerabilities. He would often bring pre-cut rope or shoelaces to bind his victims. He would disable phones and disarm potential weapons. He was a hunter, stalking his prey with chilling precision. Each attack was a carefully orchestrated performance of terror. His victims were left physically and emotionally scarred, forever changed by their encounters with pure evil. As the East Area Rapist, he terrorized Sacramento for 2 long years. Over 50 rapes were attributed to him. He would often take breaks between attacks, disappearing for weeks or even months at a time. This only amplified the fear, the uncertainty of when and where he would strike next. He would often call his victims after the attacks, taunting them, reminding them of his power. He was a ghost, slipping through the cracks, always one step ahead of the law, but the monster inside him was growing bolder, his crimes more brazen. The East Area Rapist was about to transition into something far more sinister. Section 5. A state gripped by fear. By 1979, the attacks in Sacramento ceased, but a new wave of terror began in Southern California. Couples were now the targets. The attacks were brutal, frenzied. The assailant was given a new name, the original Night Stalker. The same modus operandi was evident, the meticulous planning, the control, the chilling whispers. But this time there was a new element, murder. The victims were bludgeoned to death, their lives extinguished in a flash of violence. The fear that had gripped Sacramento now spread like wildfire throughout the state. No one knew who would be next. Section 6. DNA, the silent witness. Years melted into decades. The case went cold, but the memory of the Golden State Killer never faded. Law enforcement never gave up. They chased down every lead, every whisper, every hunch, but the elusive phantom remained just out of reach. Then, in 2018, a breakthrough. The advent of genetic genealogy, a revolutionary new forensic tool, offered a glimmer of hope. DNA evidence from the crime scenes, untouched for years, was fed into a genealogy database. A match was found. Finally, a name: Joseph James DeAngelo. Section 7. Unmasking the monster. The name sent shockwaves across the nation. Joseph James DeAngelo, a former police officer, a husband, a father. He lived a seemingly normal life in the Sacramento suburb of Citrus Heights, all the while hiding a monstrous secret. At the time of his arrest, DeAngelo was 72 years old. He was a grandfather, living a quiet retirement. The monster who had terrorized California for over a decade had a face, a name, a life outside of the shadows. The news of his arrest brought a wave of relief, but also disbelief. How could someone like him, someone sworn to protect, inflict so much pain? Section 8. Justice at last. In 2020, Joseph James DeAngelo stood trial for his crimes. He pleaded guilty to 13 counts of murder and dozens of rapes. The courtroom was packed with survivors and family members of victims, their faces etched with pain, anger, and a flicker of hope for closure. DeAngelo, frail and wheelchair-bound, listened as the litany of his crimes was read aloud. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice, it seemed, had finally been served, but for many the scars of his crimes run too deep, a constant reminder of the darkness that once gripped the Golden State. Section 9. A legacy of fear. The Golden State Killer case is a chilling reminder that monsters can hide in plain sight. This case, spanning decades, has left an indelible mark on the collective psyche of the communities affected. The fear and uncertainty that gripped these neighborhoods were palpable, as residents grappled with the horrifying reality that a predator was living among them. It's a testament to the resilience of survivors and the unwavering dedication of law enforcement. The tireless efforts of detectives, forensic experts, and community members played a crucial role in bringing the perpetrator to justice. Their determination serves as a beacon of hope for other unsolved cases, showing that persistence can eventually lead to answers. But it also begs the question, how many other Golden State Killers are out there? The case has opened our eyes to the possibility that other predators may be lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. It's a sobering thought that compels us to remain vigilant and proactive in our communities. How many cases remain unsolved? How many families are still searching for closure? The pain of not knowing what happened to a loved one is a heavy burden to bear. Each unsolved case represents a family in turmoil, a community in distress, and a justice system still striving to find the truth. How many victims are still waiting for justice? The legacy of the Golden State Killer is a complex one, filled with both sorrow and triumph. It reminds us of the importance of remembering the victims and honoring their stories, ensuring they are not forgotten in the annals of history. The legacy of the Golden State Killer is a complex one, a mix of horror, relief, and a lingering sense of unease. It forces us to confront the darkness that lurks within our communities and the potential for evil that exists in the most unexpected places. It forces us to confront the darkness that lurks within our communities and the importance of never giving up hope for justice, no matter how much time has passed. The case has shown us that even after many years, the truth can emerge and justice can be served. It forces us to confront the darkness that lurks within our communities and the importance of never giving up hope for justice, no matter how much time has passed. The case has shown us that even after many years, the truth can emerge and justice can be served. The importance of never giving up hope for justice, no matter how much time has passed. The case has shown us that even after many years, the truth can emerge and justice can be served. It is a powerful reminder that we must continue to support the efforts of law enforcement and advocate for the rights of victims and their families.